Hare Krishna. We welcome all of you, all of our wonderful esteemed YouTube listeners, and also our Facebook Live listeners. We welcome all of you to session 17 of Sri Bhagavatamrita. So we will start with the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajesh Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Matamidam Tatra Dharana Paraha Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Radhanath Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Jayapataka Swami Niti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaura Katha Dhamadaya Nagara Grama Tarine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachalam pangur langayate girin Yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurung Dinatarinang Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna, we again welcome all of you from our YouTube live listeners and all of our Facebook live listeners. Welcome to each and every one of you. So before proceeding with session 17, we would like to announce the participants of the quiz from yesterday. We had very beautiful participation, of course, by our very wonderful Rushi. Rushi has given very wonderful answers, and in fact, the way Rushi has answered has really inspired us. It very beautifully Rushi has given answers. Prajwani Mataji. Then we have Nilanjana Datta Mataji, and we also have Shweta Suryanarayanan Mataji. These are devotees from YouTube who participated in the quiz. From Facebook, we have Vrindavani Mataji, we have Anju Agarwal Mataji, we have Shweta Mataji, we have Ranjani Gopika Mataji, Divyangi Lalita Mataji, and Prem Vikas Prabhu. So we thank each and every one of you for participating, for liking, for sharing all these videos, and also to subscribing to this YouTube channel. We are very grateful to all of you. Thank you so much for all of your eager participation that enthuses us to keep going on in this service. And we really look forward to all of your online association. Thank you all so much. So today we will start with chapter 30 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are going to go to the last four chapters. These last four chapters, chapters 30, 31, 32, and 33 of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, very beautifully, they have a little pattern. So I will share the pattern with all of you before we get into the details of each and every chapter. Chapter 30, it is entitled Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. So this chapter describes in details what is the result of adverse or negative activities or karmas. You know, how we suffer in hell for the different wrongs that we have done, for different actions. What are some of the activities that we go through in hell and what happens actually? So that one in a little bit of detail is being explained here in this third canto, chapter 30. We will have a further description of the hellish planets being given in canto 5 again. But this is a small summary in this particular chapter. Then chapter 31 describes the exact timings and phase by phase growth of the living entity in the womb of the mother, when the living entity is in the womb of the mother. How the living entity prays to the Lord to rescue him from that miserable condition that the living entity is in. So chapter 31 describes that. Chapter 32 describes what is the result of pious activities of the living entities, how the living entity, because of the result of pious activities, they are elevated to higher planetary systems, but they have to eventually come down to this bhuloka to perfect their life in order to go back home, back to Godhead. So that is described in chapter 32. And the concluding chapter of Canto 3, which is chapter 33, that describes how Mother Devahuti, she got completely enlightened by the mercy and teachings of Kapiladev, and she engaged in pure devotional service to the Lord and went back home, back to Godhead. So these are the four chapters that we are going to try and cover in detail today. So with all of our Guru Varga's blessings, with blessings from all of you Vaishnavas, we will start chapter 30. So chapter 30, Kapila Dev, he is explaining to his blessed mother Devahuti. He's saying that living entities actually, you know, from the text 1 through text 19 of this particular chapter, chapter 30, Kapila Dev is explaining the powerful effect of time and how the living entity becomes delusioned into creating that which time will anyways destroy. You see, material life is some kind of a great illusion that we spend, 100% of our time in accruing for something which is not going to go with us at the end of our lives. So that is what is Kapila Muni is stressing here in the very first few verses of this chapter. And he's saying that how prevalent and how powerful Maya is, that she covers the living entity and pulls him down by influencing him to think of his home and his land, his wealth, and even his body. He thinks that it is permanent. That is the illusion that Maya Devi puts the living entity in, because that's what the living entity desires. We need to understand that this is the desire of the living entity, that they want to enjoy separately from Krishna. So therefore they are put into this kind of an illusion to think that what they are actually experiencing, their home, their immediate dependence, their own bodies, all of this is permanent. The practical example of delusion in this material world, Kapila Muni is explaining, is of the attached householder who remains attached to his family despite, difficulties, that are there in family life until his, old age. And during, he may even, go to such great extent to just stay in that family. He will not let go of the family. That's how much attached. He remains enchanted with his wife, his children, and forgets all that can end in a moment. He forgets that fact. He thinks that, all of this is actually going to come with me. And such a person may even go to hell for the misdeeds that he is committing in supporting the so-called family and getting overly attached to his family. And because of this, he finally, when he is lying down to die, he's surrounded by his relatives, but all he can think of is just his own life. And he just dies thinking of, oh, what's going to happen to my family? That is the condition of a conditioned living entity. That is described till text 19 by Kapila Muni. It's very, hard facts of life that Kapila Dev is actually talking about over here. That how the gross materialistic people are engaged in family life. And all of us, somehow or the other, we have been blessed and touched by the fortunate mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his followers. And that is the reason why we are somehow or the other, we are saved from this degrading condition of life. At least we know the difference, that, okay, what it means to be attached, what it means to be detached, what it means to actually have attachment to Krishna. At least we know that. That has been revealed to us. We may yet not be on the platform of pure devotional service, but we are definitely on the path to pure devotional service. And that is our saving grace. That is our only hope. And for that, we have our eternal gratitude to Srila Prabhupada and to all of our Guru Vargas, to all the Vaishnavas who are making this kind of arrangement so that even in this kind of situation, where the whole world is basically experiencing a lockdown, but yet we have the association of this kind of Sangha, that we are having each other's association through this kind of medium, that we can connect with devotees, we can, hear Krishna Katha, we can associate with devotees, we can take prasad together with devotees online. That is how much mercy Krishna is, how much merciful Krishna is, how he is giving us so much mercy. So for all of this, we should never ever forget to express our heartfelt gratitude to Guru and Krishna for this opportunity. And at the same time, we should always be careful, always be mindful that this situation that the world is going through right now, that we should never think that, oh, as devotees, Krishna will anyways save us. Yes, Krishna will save us, but we should be very, very careful ourselves. Follow the guidelines that have been given of social distancing. Wash hands regularly. Follow these social norms that are being set as rules, as guidelines. We should follow these things. And then, yes, of course, not be in any kind of anxiety because Abhaya Charanara Vindare, because we are taking shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, who grants Abhaya, who grants us fearlessness. So we should be completely fearless in the lotus feet, sheltered in the lotus feet of Krishna, but at the same time take proper precaution and stay safe by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, associating with devotees and in this way. So moving on, from till text 24, from text 19, till text 24, Srila Kapila Muni is explaining that how the living entity is then taken, and his, the subtle body of the living entity, comprising of the mind, intelligence, ego, and the Atma, they are carried and dragged, it is said, that such a sinful conditioned soul is then taken by the messengers of Yamaraj for punishment. He is made to suffer and is carried by the Yamadutas, and they are bitten by dogs as they remember the sinful acts of his own life. They are pulled in scorching sun and they are tormented a long distance, which is covered in actually a very few moments, very painful moments. It is said in text 24, it is said that the living entity actually has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 minutes. Moments, not even minutes. It's 2 or 3 moments that 99,000 yojanas are crossed in 2 or 3 moments. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport to this particular verse, text 24, he explains that one yojana is calculated to be equivalent to 8 miles. So the living entity actually has to pass along a road which is therefore as long as 792,000 miles within 2-3 moments. Srila Prabhupada says that nowadays, there is so much technological advancement, but none that can make us move as fast as within 2-3 moments we can cross 792,000 miles. That is Vedic philosophy. That is how true Vedic and how advanced Vedic time is. That when we are passing through, going in, and after crossing 792,000 miles, then we are presented in front of Yamaraj. And in Yamaraja's court, the prisoners, based on their own karmas, of the vikarma that they perform, the negative activities, karmas that are against the religious principles, against dharma. When they perform such karmas, based on their karma, they are, afflicted with different kinds of suffering. Like they have to eat their own flesh. They have to, their limbs are actually set on fire, and they're tormented by serpents and scorpions and other different slithering creatures. All are left on their bodies based on the kind of karmas they have. Their limbs are cut off. Different kinds of suffering is mentioned. How the living entities who have been too attached to sex life, how they go through the tamishra and the andha tamishra and the raurava hells is described. Thus one attains his sinful reactions after leaving that current body. They go through this hellish condition. So in this, I was reminded of the story of Lomasha Rishi. So Lomasha Rishi, Loma means the hair on one's body. So it is said that Lomasha Rishi, he had, every year that he would live, one hair from his body would fall off. So as many hair that he had on his body, that many years he was going to live. That was the special benediction that Lomasha Rishi had. So this Lomasha Rishi, one day he came to his other yogi friend and he came and said that, I'm having too much problem. There's so much of hair. I've got so much of, this good credits on me that I have so many years to live. And therefore I've got so much hair on my body. And because of that, it continuously itches. And because of this itching, this constant itching, I am not able to focus my mind on meditation. What should I do? This is really ridiculous. What can I do? So then the friend said, there is a very nice remedy for this given in the Shastra. And for you especially, this is something that I can think of, that you should find the most sinful person on the planet today. And then if you take the remnants from that person, this karma of yours will go away. This itching thing that you're having will go away. So Lomasha Rishi said, all right. During those days of Lomasha Rishi, Ajamil happened to be the most sinful man present on the planet. And so Lomasha Rishi went to the house of Ajamil. And his wife, Ajamil's wife, was there. And Lomasha Rishi said, "Oh, Maya, please, can you give me some food?" And Lomasha Rishi he was welcomed by Ajamil's wife. And then she gave him some food to eat. And he said, "No, no, no. Actually, I want some remnants of food that has been eaten by Ajamil. I want the remnants of his food." So then Ajamil's wife was a little shocked that why does a Brahmana want to eat, such a sinful man's, remnants? But okay, no problem. The Brahmana is asking, so she gave. And Lomasha Rishi just accepted one morsel of that, and he just gave his blessings, and he was leaving. As he was leaving from the house, he felt that immediately that itching sensation had stopped. He no longer had the itching sensation. And then he just turned around and he said, I took some benefit from this couple's home, so I must also give them something in return. So this Ajamil's wife had a young baby she had just delivered, just a few days old the baby was. And Lomasha Rishi said, "Oh, have you named the child yet?" And Jamil's wife said, "No, my dear Brahmana, we've not had the opportunity to name the child yet." And then Lomasha Rishi named the child Narayan. He said, "Call him Narayan from today, and this will save your husband from going to hell." So just following the instructions of that Brahmana, at that very moment, Ajamil also came, and they continued to call this son as Narayan. And we know how that just at the time of death, when Yamadutas had come to drag Ajamil's body, at that very moment, out of fright, out of being so scared, looking at the Yamadutas, Ajamil just called out to his son helplessly by saying, "Narayan, Narayan, please come." And as soon as the word Narayan came out of Ajamil's mouth, the Vishnu Dutas immediately appeared and said that this person has chanted, you cannot take him with you. And Ajamil was thus given a second chance. So we need to understand that this story appears, of course, in the Padma Purana, in glories of the Bhagavat. What is the glories of a Bhagavata? And what is the glory of, how these stories are told by Srila Sachinandan Maharaj. Very beautiful composition is there. So, this particular pastime is explaining that not only did Lomasha Rishi, he, was saved by this disease that he was being inflicted by, but this entire thing happened so that somehow or the other Ajamil could get the benefit that in his childhood he had rendered some devotional service. So because of the credit of that devotional service, this sadhu came to his house. Lomasha Rishi came to his house and blessed their son to be named as Narayan. So being, chanting the holy names of God, somehow or the other, chanting the names of God is the greatest savior from the hellish planets. That is the, conclusion by Kapila Dev in this particular chapter. And this chapter in text 34, is concluding with this statement by Kapila Muni. He is saying that having gone through all the miserable, hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. So after going through sinful reactions in hell, and then after also based on their karma, then they are, sent into one of the animal kingdom, they go into the animal yonis. Then after that, then they gradually elevate themselves. Then they come again and take birth as human beings. So that ends chapter 30. We now come to chapter 31, which is Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. So this chapter, as I explained before, is explaining the exact details from the time of conception. You see, according to medical science, the development of the embryo, of the fetus, can actually be calculated only from 5 to 6 weeks after conception, according to medical science. But Srimad Bhagavatam, which is not even a medical text, it gives us details from the exact time of conception. This is the glory of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have here from text 1, it is said, Kapil Muni is saying that the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the Atma, is made to enter into the womb of a mother through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. So based on the supervision of the Supreme Lord and also the laws of nature, the living entity is entering into a particular type of body. And it is said, text 2 is saying that on the first night, the sperm and ovum, they mix. And on the fifth night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum. And after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be. And then text 3 explains, in the course of a month, the head is formed, and at the end of 2 months, the hands, feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of the 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body hair, bones, and skin appear, as do the organ of generation and other appentures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and the anus. So, like this, up to text 8, text 9 actually, it is explaining about the development and the growth of the embryo within the womb of the mother. And text 9 explains the child thus remains just like a bird in a cage without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he grieves very wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? Can we imagine, what kind of a miserable condition the little living entity, within the womb of the mother undergoes? What kind of torment? Whatever the mother is eating, it is burning the delicate skin of that little child. There are worms and, insects that are biting on its tender, delicate body. Such a tormenting condition. And in that tormenting condition, that little living entity, by the mercy of Krishna, he remembers to pray. Because that is the nature of every living entity. That even Gajendra, when he was under that difficult situation of the crocodile catching hold of his leg, not letting him go, for 100 celestial years they fought. And because the crocodile is very powerful in its own territory, which is the water, the elephant, although it's the mightiest of all living entities on land, but the elephant was, defeated, in a position of getting defeated by the crocodile, because the crocodile had the advantage of its own element. So at that helpless condition, Gajendra just picked up a lotus flower and he just offered it. That he said that whoever is supreme, please help me. Please, I am giving up. You just help me. How helplessly Gajendra called out. How helplessly Mother Draupadi had called out to Krishna. Similarly, the living entity stuck in this bird, like a bird is stuck in a cage. At least the bird has the freedom to move around in the cage. That little living entity in the womb of the mother doesn't even have that freedom to move around even a little bit. Imagine it's like this. Such a difficult, tormented situation the child in the embryo is. And in that condition, the child in the embryo is said to just fold his hands and beg the Supreme Lord that, my dear Lord, please, please rescue me from this miserable condition. And I promise you, my Lord, that as soon as I come out from this miserable condition, I will surrender my life to you. I promise you. The living entity promises like this. But it is explained by Kapila Muni that as soon as the living entity then comes out, when he comes out and the air of the material world touches the living entity, that little child, when it touches the little child, forgets. The little child forgets everything. And they are now placed, Kapila Muni explains that when that little child may be crying because there may be a worm still stuck on its delicate body, and the child is screaming on top of his voice. But the doctor, the mother, everyone think that, oh, maybe the child is hungry. That's why the child is crying. And they just try to force feed the child. But the child is crying for a reason that they are not even able to explain why we are crying. Such misery the children undergo. They are maybe having stomachache, they are maybe having something else going on in their body, but they're not able to tell what is happening to them. How miserable is that condition? And then Kapila Muni explains that as the child then keeps growing, there is agony throughout the life of that child if they don't surrender to Krishna. But because they are forgetting Krishna, they have forgotten about Krishna, they even pass through their childhood, passing through childhood, he cannot play as he likes, and then he just becomes angry because he's not getting things that he wants. So children become agitated, and with the growth of the body, he becomes addicted to lust and passion, and they make enmity with people of similarly lusty people. And by following the path of unrighteousness, influenced by people addicted to improper activities, they just glide down towards hell, Kapila Muni explains, based on the kind of association that the child will keep. They just either they can elevate themselves based on the association, or they will degrade themselves. So in this way, this particular chapter is talking about how, a living entity, the human being, has that special gift that is awarded to them, that they have the power to either choose to rise above, and by their activities of pious activities, they can go up to higher planetary systems, or they can degrade themselves by their activities and go down to the lower planetary systems, to the hellish planetary systems. And Kapila Muni has already explained what happens in the hellish planetary systems. So now he's going to explain to what happens to the living entity when they rise above to the higher planetary systems. That brings us to chapter 32, entanglement in fruitive activities. You see, Kapila Muni very intelligently is telling that whether it be impious activities, whether we are degrading ourselves to hellish planets, we suffer the hellish planets, and then we come back again to the material realm to be taking birth in the Bhuloka. Similarly, even if we commit pious activities, positive activities, good karmas, we will be elevated to the higher planetary systems. But after enjoying the good of the, as soon as our goodness is exhausted over there, we will immediately come down back again to this Martya Loka, to the Bhuloka, and then we will, if we have to get out of the cycle of the 14 planetary systems, then we have to come to the Bhuloka and engage in pure devotional service of the Lord, and then we get freed from the cycle of birth and death, the repeated cycle of birth and death. So here, the particular chapter text, till text 11 in this chapter 32, Kapila Dev is explaining that a pious householder who wished to enjoy materialistic way of life, they worship the devatas and may even attain to the moon planet. But they again return to the earth. As soon as their pious activities are exhausted, they will come down to the earth. So intelligent persons, therefore, perform their duties with detachment for Krishna's pleasure and approach directly to Krishna so that their destination is to the spiritual kingdom of God. So this is what is explained in detail in this particular chapter, in chapter 32, which has 43 verses. And text 42 and 43 in this chapter is very, very interesting. This chapter is concluding by this instruction, that this instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Very clear. This is text 42, where Kapila Dev is saying very, very clearly that it means anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasya varjanam. This is what is text 42 is talking about. That accepting everything which is favorable to our Krishna consciousness, rejecting everything which is unfavorable to our Krishna consciousness. Only then we can actually make spiritual advancement by the mercy of the spiritual master. Very clear instruction here in text 42 of this chapter. Very important verse. And text 43 is the last verse of this chapter, which says, anyone who once meditates upon the Supreme Lord with faith and affection, who hears and chants about the Lord, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. What a guarantee. What an assurance. That this is, that even if one time a person is able to meditate and fix their mind and chant the holy name with love and devotion, it is Krishna's responsibility to take us back home, back to Godhead. That is the assurance of text 43. So with this, we come to the last chapter. The activities of Kapila is the title of this chapter. So this chapter, the last verse, I would like to start this chapter by reciting the last verse of this chapter. It is a benediction that is talked about here. That the benediction and the conclusion of this chapter and this entire canto, is this particular verse of this chapter. The translation is, the description of the dealings of Kapila Dev and his mother is very, very confidential. And anyone who hears or reads this narration becomes a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is carried by Garuda, and he therefore enters into the abode of the Supreme Lord to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. So Devahuti, it is explained here that Mother Devahuti, she became completely filled with knowledge. It is explained here. And she offers her respectful obeisances to her own son, Kapila Muni, and offers him prayers in relationship to his dealings in the material world. That how fortunate she feels that he chose her to be his mother. And then Kapila Muni, he very gravely, reciprocates with his mother. And he informed his mother that anyone following this kind of devotional practice would become free from birth and death. And Kapila Muni said to his mother that, my dear mother, I have given you the simplest process of attaining perfection, which is that just render devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And then Kapila Muni, he is said to have taken permission from his mother and he left from his home. He departed from his home. So this is explained all between texts 1 and 12. And till text 32, it is explained that how Devahuti, Mother Devahuti, she does feel separation from her beloved son, Kapila Dev, and she remembers the instructions that Kapila Muni has given to her. And by remembering, it is said that by constantly remembering the instructions that her son gave to her, she felt that she was closely associating with her son. Just by following the instructions that her son gave to her, she felt that she was associating closely with her. So this is the way that we have There's two kinds of services we all know. There's Vapu Seva and there is Vani Seva. Vapu Seva means serving the physical body of the spiritual master is called Vapu Seva. And Vani Seva means that when we receive an instruction from the spiritual master, making that instruction to be our life and soul, we, follow that instruction of the spiritual master. The spiritual master has given us general instructions that follow the four regulative principles, chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and assist me in expanding the movement of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, of Srila Prabhupada's movement, Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. This is the general instruction that our gurus have given us. So following these instructions is Vani Seva. And when we follow these instructions of the spiritual master, we will be always, always united with our spiritual master. And the living example of that is, of course, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, in his diary, if you read the, Srila Prabhupada's biography, Prabhupada Lilamrita, if you read that, Srila Prabhupada in his New York days in the early 1965 and 66, in that 1 year, Srila Prabhupada, he writes in his diary, he says that I am walking around alone in the cold streets of New York. It appears to me that I apparently appear to be alone, but I never felt alone. I always felt the presence of my spiritual master. Prabhupada writes that although Srila Prabhupada was apparently alone, he never felt alone. Because Srila Prabhupada was roaming around the streets of New York just to follow the instructions of his Guru Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada never felt alone. He always felt the presence of his spiritual masters. We see our Guru Vargas today, that how much separation they are feeling from Srila Prabhupada. But still they are continuing with their service with such vigor, with so much love, with so much dedication, with so much sincerity, that this shows that they're constantly feeling the presence of Srila Prabhupada with them. And same for us, following in the footsteps of these acharyas, we have to also, that we may be physically separated from our spiritual masters. But if we simply follow their instructions, we will be always united with them. That is the glory of Vani Seva. So that is what is explained here, that, then Devahuti, Mother Devahuti, she continued practicing the devotional practices that her son had taught her, and then she was able to successfully give up her life and go back home, back to Godhead. So this is how this particular canto ends, and how Mother Devahuti, she attained perfection just by the divine association of her husband, Kardama Muni, and also of her glorious son, Kapiladev. Similarly, this, we will conclude today's session by this one story from the Padma Puran again, which talks about a moment's association with a sadhu. What is the result of a moment's association with a sadhu? Labhamatra sadhu sango, sharva siddhi hai. So this pastime, many of us may have heard it, but I just want to repeat it again. So we all know that Maharaj Ambarish, he is one of the most celebrated Rajarshis, like a sadhu king that we have. And Maharaj Ambarish is said to have perfected in all the 9 practices of devotional service, all the 9 processes of devotional service, he had perfected. So that was the position of Maharaj Ambarish. And Narad Muni was a frequent visitor to Maharaj Ambarish. And one day Narad Muni came to see Ambarish Maharaj, and he was Ambarish Maharaj was a little sad. He was a little distressed. And Narad Muni said, "My dear Ambarish, why are you sad? What happened to you?" So Ambarish Maharaj said, I am tired. I am really sad because my own brother, I'm not able to convince him to become a devotee. I'm not able to make him a devotee. I'm feeling so bad for this. So please, my dear Narada Muni, could you do something? You are the transcendental spaceman. Please, can you do something for this particular brother of mine? You know, you have disciples starting from an embryo. You have made a disciple even in the embryo, even to the snake. In every, form of life, you have a disciple. In the embryo, Prahlad Maharaj became Narad Muni's disciple. We have snakes. So Narad Muni has a disciple in every species of life. That's the glory of Narad Muni. So Ambarish Maharaj said, please, Narada, can you please help me? So Narad said, yes, how can I, not agree to do something that you are saying? Of course, I'll give it a try. So Narad Muni went to the palace of this brother of Ambarish Maharaj. Unfortunately, his name is never mentioned, so we don't know his name, but he's known as the brother of Ambarish Maharaj. And it is said that Narad Muni addressed him as Hey Raja. And then Narad Muni sat, and then, this Raja was very welcoming to Narad Muni, and they started talking. And Narad Muni then started trying to preach and tell about Krishna. And as soon as the name Krishna came out of the mouth of Narad Muni, this Raja became very, very disturbed. And he just started picking up his glasses and his utensils and throwing them at Narad Muni. And he called out to his gods and said, get this Narad Muni out of here. Just move him from me. I don't want to listen to anything. So while leaving the palace, Narad Muni shouted out. He said, hey, Papi Raja, means, oh, sinful king, please, when you are presented in front of Yamaraj, just ask him one question, that what is the result of even a moment's association with a sadhu? Ask him this question. So he just shouted out this, Narad Muni just shouted this out to the brother, and he ran away from there. So then time went by, due to the will of providence, this brother, of course, died. And because of all of his sins, he had committed. So the Yamadutas came, they took Ambarish Maharaj's brother to Yamaraj. And he was presented in front of Yamaraj. And Yamaraj was about to, say the punishment for the brother. And then Ambarish Maharaj's brother remembered the words of Narad Muni, and he said, wait, I have one question. And Yamaraj said, okay, what is your question? And he said, yes, my question is, what is the result of even a moment's association with a sadhu? And Yamaraj was scratching his head. He said, well, I don't know the answer to this. So let's go to my friend Lord Shiva. He's Param Vaishnav. He may know. Let's go to him. So taking Ambarish Maharaj's brother and this Papi Raja, the Yamaraj took the Papi Raja with him to Kailash, to the abode of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva and Yamaraj, they are, best of friends. They exchanged niceness. And then after that, Lord Shiva said, well, why have you come? And Ambarish Maharaj's brother then said, well, Yamaraj said, this guy has a question, that what is the result of a moment's association with a sadhu? Lord Shiva said, seems complex. Let's go to the creator of the universe. Let's go to Lord Brahma, the first living entity. Maybe he'll have the answer. So then they all came to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma also said, with his 4 heads, Lord Brahma was, raking his brains, all his 4 brains. But he couldn't come to a conclusion. So then Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Yamaraj, and the brother of Ambarish Maharaj, Lord Brahma suggested, let's go to Vaikuntha. Let's go there and find out from Lord Vishnu himself. So then they went and knocked on the doors of Vaikuntha. And then they were let in. When they were let in, at that time, Lord Vishnu smiled and greeted these 3 personalities, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Yamaraj, and said, why are you all here? What happened? And then Yamaraj said that, my dear Lord, this is, Ambarish Maharaj's brother, and I was about to give him the punishment, and he just said that, asked me this question, that what is the result of a person who has even a moment's association with the sadhu. So then Lord Vishnu, he just smiled upon all four of them, and he caught hold of the hand of Ambarish Maharaj's brother, and he told him, welcome to Vaikuntha. So this is the result of a moment's association with the sadhu. So now all three of you, Yamaraj, go back. You, Lord Shiva, go back. Lord Brahma, go back to all your respective positions. But this person will stay here. That is the result of a moment's association with the sadhu. So the Sangha that we have, the association of devotees, Vaishnavas, are our greatest treasure. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought this Sangha as his greatest weapon against the forces of Maya in Kali Yuga. United we stand, divided we fall. So if we can all be together in this war against Maya, in the loving association of like-minded devotees, if we can hold each other's hands and stay strong during, this time that we have, we all will be very, very victorious. And in unison, if we serve the Supreme Lord, Krishna will definitely give us his mercy. Because Krishna is most pleased when we render devotional service in a spirit of love and trust in the association of devotees. That is the most pleasing activity to Krishna. So let us all try, as much as we can to, help to make Krishna happy. So with this, we will end, today's session. We thus have concluded all, the chapters in this third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is called as the status quo. So from tomorrow, Prabhu will start with fourth canto, and we can take any questions, comments, or reflections that we may have. Okay, so Radha Kasturi Mataji. Can you clarify with examples what devotional service in the mode of ignorance? Is it that the devotee is envious of devotee and Krishna shows anger during devotional service, etc.? Yes, this point was talked about by Prabhu yesterday, that envious, proud, violent, and angry in devotional service is devotional service in the mode of ignorance. So that is definitely, when another devotee, when, they get mercy, if we become happy to see another devotee getting mercy, then we receive the same kind of mercy. But if we become envious, then that is mode of ignorance, So hope that answers your question. Then we have, let's see, I think I see Madhavi Gopi also asking a question. So, Hare Krishna, embryo prays earnestly to Krishna to become a devotee, but forgets everything as soon as he is born by will of Krishna. So, is Krishna hearing to the prayer of the embryo? Yes. Krishna is definitely hearing to the prayer of the embryo. You see, what happens is that we need to understand that, surrendering to Krishna is actually a moment by moment surrender. It's not that, oh, I surrendered to Guru and Krishna at the time of my initiation. I vowed to them on the day of initiation, I will chant 16 rounds, but then I just do it on that day and then I don't have to follow through. We have to follow through on that every day of our life. So surrendering to Krishna is actually a moment by moment. We may, like, one moment we may be thinking of Krishna, the next moment we may forget about remembering Krishna. So therefore, we are in the stage where we have to constantly remind ourselves to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. But Krishna, he is so kind that he actually, because he never forgets when a living entity calls out to Krishna. In any situation, Krishna never forgets, even though the living entity may forget. That's why Krishna makes arrangement somehow or the other for that living entity to somehow or the other to come in touch with devotees. Krishna gives an opportunity. Because you see, Krishna is that loving father who reciprocates based on the will and the desire of the living entity. So when, as soon as the living entity, that living and the child comes out of the mother's womb, they get influenced by their own karma, their own desires, and the material natures. They get influenced by all of that, and they can forget Krishna. If they're not in the proper Krishna conscious surrounding, they can forget Krishna. But somehow the other, somehow Krishna will definitely give that living entity at least one opportunity where that living entity can revive, and come to Krishna. Krishna will give that living entity one opportunity at least. So that is how merciful Krishna is, that he never forgets. Even though the living entity may forget, Krishna never forgets. One time if we just say lovingly, we call out Krishna, that moment, Krishna will never forget. Never forget. Even though we may forget it, but Krishna will never forget. He will make arrangements so that we can come back to Krishna. He will make arrangements in that way. I hope that answers your question, Madhavi. Very beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking. Um, Okay, Premalata Mataji, Hare Krishna. All the living entities in the womb remembers past lives and pray, or only fortunate Atma will remember and pray? Please clarify. Well, that is depending on the particular Atma, the kind of karma they have, the kind of consciousness that particular living entity has. So based on it is not a general guideline that everyone will remember their past 100 lifetimes. It's not everybody who remembers. So it is, but generally, yes, they do. But the nature of this world is that we do remember at that time, but then as soon as, we take birth, we are, the material realm makes us forget all of those suffering miseries that we went through. So yes, sometimes it could be that all living entities do not, based on their karma, based on their level of consciousness, they may or may not. But generally, they do. At that time, they generally do. I hope that answers your question, Premalata Mataji. Um, yes, it is indeed surprising, Premalata Mataji, that how a sinful person's remnants can cure the disease of a sage. This is the glory of the Bhagavad Purana, you see, that's what I was explaining in this katha, that it can be a very big contradiction. I mean, just apparently thinking that how can a sinful man's remnants ever, help even a brahmana or anybody for that matter. You see, there is a very famous statement that says that if you want to take out a thorn from your body that has pricked your body, you can take it out only with another thorn. So it's not that a sinful reaction will nullify another sinful reaction, but in this case, poison did cut off the poison. So that's how we should accept it. I hope that clarifies your question. Um, any other questions? On Facebook, Ashesha Gaura Hari Prabhu, you have a question. Why Yamadutas are harsh to the soul? Karma is the results of actions and it will come. Why not just take them in a neutral way to the court? Okay, that's your first question. Very nice question, Prabhu. Well, you see, it is part of the suffering that not all suffering souls are dragged in that way. Some are just presented in front of Yamaraj, and some very, very sinful people, they have to probably undergo that kind of reaction. That's why they are dragged in that sense. So it just depends on living entity to living entity. It's not a one rule fit all kind of thing. It is the laws of karma, the laws of nature are very, very intricate. Srila Prabhupada says, for one particular action there may be different reactions for different living entities, because every living entity has a different state of consciousness, different level of consciousness. So the way one particular living entity performs an action, the same action will not be performed by the same other person in the same way. Just like, very simple example Prabhupada gave to understand this is that a class with 25 students, the same teacher is giving the same education to all 25 children. But at the time of exam, there are some students out of that 25 who even fail. Some people top the class, some people are average. So why is there a differentiation? Everyone got the same kind of knowledge. No one got any special favors, but there is still a difference. That is because everyone is at different levels. So I hope that answers your question. You have another question? The story of baby praying in the womb and then come out, forget Krishna is usually said in a way that baby forget because it is careless. If baby is forced to forget by Krishna, what is the point of letting it pray in the womb? If there is a chance, then why not baby out of billions remember the womb time other than maybe Parikshit Maharaj? Very good question, Prabhu. You see, as I was explaining in the class itself, that when we are pressed, when we feel pressured, when difficulty hits us, that's when, and in any helpless condition, that's when we generally seek shelter. That's just how our selfish nature is. That's how selfish we are. We tend to forget God during our good times and remember God only during our difficult times. That's how selfish and desire oriented and motivated our dependence on Krishna is. So the living entity, when they are in the womb, they are in that helpless condition that they really have no other way to go other than to seek shelter of the Lord. So that's why it is said that pitana sasya jananina sasyaj, that you cannot be a parent, you cannot be a mother, you cannot be a father unless you can deliver your dependents. You should not be a guru, you should not be a king if you cannot deliver your dependents. If you cannot deliver your own children, then do not become a mother, do not become a father. That is the verdict of the Shastra. So therefore, it is the responsibility of the parents when they are bringing a child into this world to give the child a proper spiritual atmosphere, so that the child can nurture and develop their God consciousness, is the responsibility of the parents. So that kind of a favorable atmosphere is to be awarded by the parents, so that the child can develop its lost attachment, its forgotten attachment to Krishna. But Krishna is still so kind that even if the parents are not able to do this, then Krishna never forgets the living entity who has somehow or the other prayed and remembered Krishna. So Krishna will give that living entity one opportunity or the other to rekindle their lost remembrance of Krishna. They will get an opportunity. So I hope this answers your question, Ashesha Gaurahari Prabhu. Thank you very much for this wonderful question. I hope it answers. Divyangi, Matiji, we have another question. Usually we observe 11 days after a person passes away, thinking that soul still lingers around. But now hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam that the soul goes to Yamaraj within 2-3 moments, we want to understand what is the significance of observing the ritual for 11 days. So, the 11 days ritual actually, I believe that it is, different for different varnas also. Like Brahmanas, they observe a few days, then the Shudras observe a different number of days. So it's all different based on the varnas and the ashramas that are there, especially on the varnas. But yes, there is a purification period that, it's said that the soul does linger, but the soul lingers. The reason why we are offering even the Shraddha ceremony, it is so that the soul is able to be given Vishnu Prasad. Shraddha means that we offer our foodstuff to Vishnu, and the remnants of Vishnu Prasad is given to the departed soul, so that by taking that remnants of the prasad, they will be delivered from this, from the hellish planets, and they will be able to get, an elevated birth at least. So Srila Prabhupada says that why to wait for a person to give up their life and then feed them prasad? Why, when they are not alive, why can't you feed them prasad at that time? So that even the condition for going to hell doesn't even arise. That is the argument of Srila Prabhupada. And therefore, it is our responsibility that somehow or the other distribute prasad, distribute cookies which are first offered to the Lord. Just give it out to people, because just by taking prasad, they are saved from going to hell. It is not that every living entity goes to hell. Some living entities, they just directly get, another body. And they may, Srila Prabhupada actually explains in chapter 31, in the purports, Prabhupada is explaining that the laws of material nature are so stringent. The laws of nature, the laws of karma are extremely stringent, because based on the activities of a particular living entity, the reaction may be that they have to eat stool. That is the kind of actions that they have done. So they actually go to hell so that they can practice eating stool, so that when they are born as hogs or pigs in their next life, based on their karma, they can relish and they will distinguish between wet stool and dry stool. Prabhupada saying this in the purport. So hell is actually a preparation that the living entity goes through so that they can accept the next life. And the way it happens is the time. Just want to mention this very important point, that time is relative. You see, when we are pleasant on the Bhuloka, when we move up to higher planetary systems, one moment in the higher planetary systems is equivalent to 1 year on Bhuloka. Similarly, many, many years in the lower planetary systems is equivalent to one moment on the earthly planetary system. That is the relativity of time. That is the way the dimensions of time work according to the higher and lower planetary systems. So in hellish planets, we may be there for many years, but it would just be like a moment here on earth. It would just look as if, oh, we just went and we came back and the next body is ready. That's the relativity of time. So I hope this answers your question, Divyangi. Thank you very much for that question. Okay. Which question is that? Sorry, I don't have that. Okay. Jai Shankar Murugesh Prabhu. Hare Krishna Mataji Prabhuji, please accept my humble. Why does the Supreme Lord give us such an unthinkable punishment? As a father, I can't think of punishing child to such an extent. Well, that's very true. That why does Krishna give us this kind of punishment? Well, the answer to that, Prabhu, is a very difficult answer. Difficult for us to accept it, because the living entity renders such activities, that they are, just like how, meat eaters, people who love to eat meat, they just, are, so much driven by the lust of their tongues, they can't stop eating meat. So then Krishna says, well, if you want to enjoy meat, human body is not meant for that. The kind of intestine, the kind of biology that is there in our own system, it is not meant for digesting meat. It is meant for only digesting, vegetables and, other sattvic kind of foods. But if you want to enjoy meat, then I will give you a body which is suitable for you to enjoy meat. Actually, it is the mercy of Krishna that he gives us things that we desire. Then the question comes that, okay, then why does Krishna want us to even desire such things? Why does, Krishna not control our desires? Then we will call Krishna to be a control freak. Then that is not, love has to be something that is out of choice. We cannot be forced at gunpoint that you love me. Then we'll say, yes, I love you, I surrender to you. But that will be out of fear. That is not called love. So Krishna is giving us the different, it's looking to us as if it is punishment, but Krishna is actually reciprocating the desires, the horrible, horrible desires that each and every one of us have, our deepest, darkest, kinds of desires. So those desires are fulfilled by Krishna. That is how these laws of nature work. It is the bare truth, and it is difficult to digest, but it is what it is. This is what is the answer to that particular query of yours. I hope this answers your question. Jai Shankar. So Jai Shankar Prabhu again, is super soul present when the soul is carried all the way to Yamaraj, and is karma not finished after all the punishment? The super soul is a constant companion of the Atma. The super soul never leaves the Atma alone. The super soul is always a witness, always a witness. The super soul is always present. And is the karma finished? No, the karmas are never finished. You know, the reason why the super soul, sorry, the Atma then again takes birth into another body is so that the karma can continue, and there is no thing as that, oh, your slate is wiped clean. The slate of karma can only be wiped clean by the process of devotional service. When we engage in devotional service to Krishna, only then we are free from all karma. So I hope that answers your question. Why, Prajvani Mataji, why is it said threefold miseries? Threefold miseries because there is threefold miseries, which is called as Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, and Adidaivika miseries. Miseries, Adhyatmika means miseries inflicted by our own mind, um, means depression, anxiety, fear. All of these are miseries that are caused by our own mind. That is called adhyatmika. Adibhautika means miseries inflicted by another living entity. Sometimes our boss, sometimes it could be a mosquito. Now we have, of course, what we have, which is tormenting us. We have the coronavirus that is torment. That is adhyatmika. Adibhautika. Then there is something called as Adidaivika. Actually, Corona can be categorized even as Adidaivika. But anyways, Adidaivika misery is something that is like a natural disaster, like earthquake or famines or droughts. These are things which we have no control over. That is called as Adidaivika miseries. So these are the threefold miseries that is inflicted upon the living entity by the material nature. That is called as Adidaivika miseries. That is why it's threefold. I hope that answers your question. Prajvani Mataji again, why have we come to Bhuloka to enjoy instead of the higher planetary systems? Well, based on our karma. Our karma has brought us to Bhuloka. And our karma, if we do good karmas, pious activities, then we will be elevated to the higher planetary systems. So that's why we are here in Bhuloka. I hope that answers your question. Anything else? Okay, I think that is Janeshwar Gauranga Prabhu. Question is, during the morning period when deity worship is not done, huh? What's that? Oh. Okay. Okay. The question by Janeshwar Gauranga Prabhu is that, is it true that baby forgets everything as soon as the baby starts crying when coming into this world? Yes. As it is said that as soon as the baby is coming out of the mother's womb, as soon as the air of this material world touches the head of the baby, it is said, the body of the baby immediately forgets, because that's the material nature touching the baby. So as soon as the baby is touched by the material nature, the baby immediately forgets at that time. And again, another question by Janeshwar Gauranga Prabhu is that during the morning period, when deity worship is not done, is the prasad given from another person's house? Well, deity worship, for Vaishnavas, we had asked this question to Jananivas Prabhu, and Jananivas Prabhu had mentioned that there is nothing called as the mourning period for Vaishnavas, although we do follow the etiquette just to, keep up with society. Sometimes we may need to follow certain things, but regular worship at home can continue. You can still offer bhoga at home. You can still continue to do your worship at your own home. That's no problem for you to do that, even though there may be a mourning period. You may have a death in the family, but your worship of the deities doesn't have to stop. That is what Jananivas Prabhu said. In fact, there were many brahmacharis in the temple, in Mayapur temple. Sometimes they had a death in their family who were not devotees, and they would ask Jananivas Prabhu this question, that can they come and dress the deities in the altar, Radha Madhava deities? And Jananivas Prabhu said, no problem at all. You can still come and dress the deities. Because for Vaishnavas, these rules don't really apply. That's what he said. But still the Vaishnavas sometimes choose to follow it, because so that they're not criticized in the society. So basic rules, if you're living in society, then basic rules can be followed. But home worship and taking prasad at home and offering your bhoga at home, that's not a problem at all. So I hope that answers your question, Prabhu. Geeta Varadarajan Mataji, a question is, once the living entity goes back to the spiritual world, do we have super soul there also? So at that time, the super soul actually manifests externally, it is said. When the living entity goes back home, back to Godhead, to the spiritual world, the super soul manifests from the heart to externally and manifests externally as Krishna himself. So we can see the super soul at that time, in front of us, in front of our own eyes. So, the body in the spiritual world is not this kind of a body. We don't even have our subtle bodies there. It's a completely different kind of body. It is a spiritual body, of only the Atma, which is of the nature of Satchidananda, of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. That is the composition of the body in the spiritual world. So I hope that answers your question. Very nice question. Um, so that's it. So before we end our session, we will also like to give you the quiz for today's session, which will be posted in our it will be posted even in the YouTube comment section. It will be posted even in Facebook and in the WhatsApp group as well. So here's the question for session 17. First question, how many yojanas the living entity has to pass in 2 or 3 moments before being presented to Yamaraj? Second question, what was the special benediction to Lomasha Rishi? Third question, what is the condition of the child in the womb compared to in Srimad Bhagavatam? Fourth question, what is the Sanskrit name of the cycle of birth and death? Fifth question, in the story mentioned in this class, what was the question Narad Muni recommended to ask? So these are the 5 questions that we have for today. We are looking forward to all of your answers. And before we end the session today, we request all of you to kindly like these videos so that YouTube, based on all your likes, they will share it also. Same with Facebook, they will share it to other listeners. So please do like these videos and subscribe to this channel so that you can keep getting updates. And we thank each and every one of you for your active participation, and your enthusiastic participation enthuses us. So thank you all so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Vartaman Guru Vrind ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.